The comfortable road will never lead you to the person you are destined to be, ever in your life.
The thing that's gonna kill your dream is your addiction to other people's approval.
I'm constantly in a crisis to get to the next version of me.
Need motivation?
Watch the Top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 to 9. For my top 10, top 10, 9 to 9. This one's for my top 10.
He's Ed Mylett, and here's my take on his top 50 rules for success. Enjoy. Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. Alter your beliefs.
There's this governor on our lives, and it is a governor, and it's your identity. It's this internal, it's what you think you're worth. It's what you think you deserve. And the problem for good people, see, we all know someone right now in our life, or we have, who's not ethical, who's not a good person, who's winning, and you're like, I can't believe they're getting it, right? Why can't I? I'm a good person. I treat people well. I'm honest. Here's the reason why. By the way, the unethical person, eventually, karma, you reap what you sow, comes home to roost. But if you're a good person, this is so important people understand this, because it took me a long time. A good person in any endeavor will only take from it what they think they deserve, what they think they're worth. In other words, if there was a pizza here, you're a good person. You don't take all 12 pieces. Right. A good person thinks there should be an equitable distribution.
Yeah, I'm a little bigger, so I might take 7 or 8. You know,
and I would arm wrestle you for it.
You would beat me.
I don't know about that. You're a moose. But long story short, what is that a good person will not take more from the table of life than they think they're worth or they think they deserve. And so you have this governor on your identity. So what happens is it's like a thermostat. Our lives get going. We start doing really well. If we're a 75 degreeer and our life gets to 85 and 90 degrees, unconsciously we go, we don't know we're doing it. We start to cool life back down to get it back to where we're comfortable. The reverse is also true. When things start to go really bad and you're broke and you're struggling, you find a way to heat your life back up to what you think you're worth and you deserve. So the way we alter our life is, sure, we got to alter our behavior and our relationships and our circumstances, but the only way it's permanent is that we alter that governor, that thermostat, and we start to believe we're worth 85 degrees of life, 95 degrees of life, 110 degrees of life. And there's ways we can alter that.
How do we alter it?
A couple different ways. One is what you just said, is that you put yourself in circumstances that are demanding of you past what you think your capacity is, and when you succeed at them, you build a new water line. You do. You throw yourself out there past where you're comfortable, and you do an 85 degrees behavior, and you knock it out of the park, and you go, your brain starts to believe it. Repetitiously, when you start doing that, you build a new line. Now you're 85 degrees. That's number one. The second way, though, is association. If you're around people, and whatever that endeavor is, if it's a sport you're in, or if it's a business, or your faith, or your peace, if you begin to associate with people who live in that space at a higher temperature than you, through association you get heated up.
Yeah.
And so if you're an athlete, for example, you're a 70-degree athlete, and you start training all the time with 85 and 90 degrees, your identity through osmosis goes up. If you're a person who's trying to improve their faith in their life or their personal peace about them, you all know this. You've seen it. When you start to hang around people that are a little bit more peaceful than you or meditate a little bit more, through that association, over time, the thermostat changes in that area. And so it's both behaving in a certain way, and then your associations usually change.
I believe that.
Rule number 2, don't sell your will to win.
Most people's will to win is for sale. It's for sale.
Most people's will
is for sale.
to win is for sale.
They can be bought. I can't be bought. So if we give you if we gave you just enough money, if there's a certain dollar amount, you'd stop working hard.
Wow,
we give you a title,
that.
you'd stop working hard. We give you a car or a plane or a house.
Dude, that's the book, bro. That's the book.
Is that the book? Yeah, that might be the book.
That is the book.
And so
your will to win is for sale.
That's right. And I decided once I realized that, because I watch it happen with people in their body and their finances and their family and their faith, whatever it is, I'm not for sale. So there isn't a place you're going to buy me. You can't get me. There's not a stop, a place, a destination where you're going to get me to relent, to quit. I want to improve. That doesn't mean I don't struggle with my motivation from time to time. Doesn't mean I don't get confused or down. Of course I do, but I'm not for sale. You can't buy me. And you know this too. We see friends of ours, even guys in their 60s, said they sold their company for blah, 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 and now they golf 9 days a week or whatever. You know, that's fun, but they're for sale. They were bought. You were bought. You were for sale. I'm not for sale.
Rule number 3, serve people.
Everything in your life happens for you, not to you. I'm just a huge believer in that. And so my baseball dream ended. I had an injury, probably gave me a premature end to occur that would have ended anyways in hindsight, because I played with enough great players that I kind of know there was a gap in just God-given ability level, not work ethic, but I think to be the greatest, there has to be some proclivity for it and work ethic, right? And so I kind of maxed out my limited abilities. And so when I got released, I ended up moving back home with my parents. I couldn't find a job. I was depressed. I spent about a year at my parents' house, just broke in every way, financially, spiritually, mentally, physically. I remember my dad came home. My dad had just got sober. And my dad said to me, hey, I met this guy at a meeting. I got you a job. You get your ass down there tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. You're getting out of this house and getting a job. And I'm like, okay, I have a college degree. You know, I'm being picky for a year, watching Maury Povich reruns every day on TV and Jerry Springer. I go down there at 6 a.m. I walk in, I said, hey, my name's Eddie Mylett. I'm here for the job. They're like, what job? I remember this vividly, right? And I'm like, I don't know. They just told me you'd know. And they go, well, we have no idea who you are and we don't know what the job is. They said, do you know who's hiring you? I said, I don't remember. And they go, well, then you need to come back. And I go to the door and I go, wait a minute, his name's Tim. They're like, there's a lot of Tims. And I go, well, I know he must be an alcoholic because he was at a meeting with my dad last night. They go, oh, drunk Tim, we know Tim, right? And where I was a place called McKinley Home for Boys. It was a group home, a campus of group homes. All my boys were wards of the court. They were removed from their family either because their parents were incarcerated, killed, or were molesting them. And I ended up in Cottage 8. Cottage 8, I had 12 boys. They were 7 to 10 years old. And I walked through that door that morning, not even knowing what the job was, and it transformed my life. I mean, in an instant, brother. I just saw these eyes, these little boys, and they just wanted someone to love them and believe in them and care about them. And I'd have this big belief that people that go through any dysfunction in their family or abuse as a kid, I think our eyes are different. We just have these different eyes, man. And so I could connect with these guys. Mine wasn't as severe as theirs, but I knew what it was like to have that kind of anxiety and that kind of stress and that kind of pressure put on you as a little boy. And I became like their father. I was there with them on Christmas and Halloween and their birthdays, and I lived with them. And it changed my world because in that instant, I went from being this athlete who was ego, recognition, significance, gonna get rich, it's all about me. Always when you're a good athlete, you knew this growing up, it was always accolades. All of a sudden in that instant, it became about serving people, making a difference. And I've been like, oh, this is what makes me happy. Oh, I was actually born to serve and help people. Crazy. No one, that never happened playing baseball. And while I worked there, 2 years into it, the financial business that I'm in came along. And I started in it part-time, and I was the rare young businessman who approached the business world from a place of service and giving and not making money. And ironically, the more I served people, the more I made a difference, the more I contributed, the more I was rewarded financially. I didn't do it for that reason, but that's what happened. So that's how I got into the business, was actually, and again, everything, my dad wasn't an alcoholic. He's not at that meeting. I don't get that job. And if it wasn't alcoholic, I wouldn't have connected with those boys. So all of that in hindsight happened for me, right? And had I met the financial business before that, I'd have flown out of it. I'd have been about ego, making money, and when that didn't happen, I'd have left. Yeah. And so it all happened in the right sequence.
Rule number 4, overcome struggles.
I kept my job at McKinley, and part-time I started in the financial services industry and started to build a team of people and started to get my licenses and that transition. And I struggled like every upstart entrepreneur does.
Well, it takes like 3 to 5 years until you really get a few clients, you know.
In any business, I don't care if it's financial services, tech, dry cleaners, entrepreneurs, the first 5 years is just full of false starts. Yeah. You get it going, then you don't. You get it going, you take a step forward, you take 3 back. It's constant false starts. It's constantly thinking you have it going. It's constantly negotiating in your mind the price you're paying. Is it worth it? Should I quit? Should I give in? I spent the first 5 years daily contemplating quitting. Yeah. All the time. Even
it's not fun.
Time. It wasn't fun. And there's just a part of you, I think, in anything you're doing when you're struggling, is this really for me? Is this my destiny? Should I be doing this? And we misread failure from some sign. You know, is this a sign I shouldn't be doing it? You know, is this a sign I am, not cut out for this? Instead of looking for signs that you can win, right? And so I spent the first 5 years literally trying to find ways to quit, trying to find ways to get out, struggling. And I went broke. I lost a car. I had the water turned off in my place. I bought my first house. I ended up having it foreclosed on eventually. So I'm not that house with the unicorns that you saw, right? Or my beach place. Like that's all the after. People don't realize that there were just years and years of of grinding and struggling and worrying in the beginning. And then I made some mental changes and some shifts that altered my life then again.
Also, if you want to learn how to have confidence like successful entrepreneurs, check out my 254 series. It's free. The links are in the description below.
The fact that human beings, our strongest drive is the need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves.
The reason people aren't patient is they value other people's opinions too much.
You have to go build self-confidence.
Rule number 5, find mentors.
I knew I wanted to be successful. I think like in most things life, they show up eventually, but maybe they don't look like the way you thought they'd look when they show up, right? So I was going to be a baseball player. From the time I was a little boy, I was going to be a Major League Baseball player.
Like how young?
Oh, 4 or 5 years old, talking about that, knowing players, studying it, telling people I was going to be one.
Looking a certain way.
Trying to be athletic. I'm a little dude naturally, trying to build my body up and build myself up.
Little dude.
Well, I am. I mean, but I got little wrists, and I don't do Pilates, but like you do. But I do work out. But anyway, and the Pilates looks good on you. You look younger than I do, brother. So, but anyway, I did grow up wanting to be somebody, and then I got a mentor when I was really young. Hall of Fame baseball player named Rod Carew, who most of you out there would probably know, grabbed me when I was a young man and started pouring belief into me.
How young was that?
I was probably 9.
Okay.
He grabbed me, started pouring belief into me.
Why did he
He saw
grab
me
you?
at a baseball camp, saw that I was a little guy, saw that I had some potential. I kind of swung like him and batted like him. And so I spent the better part of my youth being mentored and coached one-on-one by a Hall of Fame baseball player. And he didn't just pour baseball tools into me, he poured belief. You're going to be somebody someday. You're going to do something great. So I had someone in my ear I respected believing in me from when I was young. I think that helped me.
Rule number 6, chase discomfort.
I kind of grew up in that space that is dangerous because it's like a slow asphyxiation, right? I grew up what I'd call like middle class, but probably the lower side of middle class too. So I think I've told you this, I think there's an advantage sometimes to growing up rich because you got connections and you see the right behaviors modeled maybe. When you're poor, a lot of my buddies that are successful now that were poor, they knew what they didn't want. They were fighting, they learned to struggle. They grew up sooner, right? They couldn't make excuses. They had to learn to be self-resilient. The middle's difficult because good's the enemy of great, right? And so it wasn't horrible. It wasn't like there wasn't food on the table. It wasn't like I didn't get a present on my birthday, right? So you kind of start to think that's what life is. No one in my family ever talked about dreaming or winning or being wealthy. Same time, we weren't really running from something either. So there was no stimulus. The stimulus when you're poor is to get out of there. The stimulus when you're rich is to replicate it. There was no stimulus from where I'm from. And so probably the rarest background when you meet somebody that's successful is the middle. It's actually the rarest that you meet somebody, they're from the middle. And so a lot of your listeners come from that place because most people are in the middle, right? And so I'm sort of, I think, an example of some of the things maybe you would need to do to get out of that space to move from good to some form of greatness in your life.
Yeah. It's comfort, right? That word comfort can be a killer, right? And so that's exactly why I wanted you to point that out, is because so many of us do come from that, and also we're maybe existing in it right now.
So true.
And how important is it to stretch ourselves and to really kind of get comfortable with discomfort?
You do. You need to do that. Malcolm X is a guy that I've read a lot about. And Malcolm X, my favorite quote of Malcolm X is that which you do not hate, you will eventually tolerate. And so there has to be this point in your life where what you want is so much greater than where you are. You're in such discomfort. In other words, the gap between what you're dreaming of, what you're destined to do, what you're capable of, you're aware of it compared to where you are. That tension between the two has a pull power to it, right? And so it's important all the time that wherever you are in life that you're chasing that next version of you. There's this thing I'm just unbelievably passionate about. That is that I have this theory that I've told you this before, but that I think that at the end of your life, there's this place you come to. And I'm a Christian, so I think at the end of my life, I want the Lord to go, hey, well done, good and faithful servant. It doesn't matter what your faith is. You probably are aware there's history being made or an accounting. But I also think he's going to go, hey, by the way, this is who you could have been. I think he introduces you to the person you are capable of becoming. I really believe that at the end of your life, you're going to get introduced to the person you could have been, you were destined to be, that he made you to be. And so I'm chasing that dude. Every day I'm chasing that dude. That's the pull power for me. Every decision I make, the things I go through in my life, whether I'm going to go to the gym, whether I'm going to make a phone call, how I'm going to eat, does it get me closer to that guy? Because I think the best end of a life is well done by the Lord, and you're identical twins with that person. The bad end of a life would be, I meet this man I could have been, and we're total strangers.
I mean, we're just complete opposites. I know nothing about this guy. There's no familiarity at all. And it means that I went down these easy roads. I took the comfortable road. The comfortable road will never lead you to the person you are destined to be, ever in your life. And so I don't know if you don't become obsessed with chasing that person, you end up never meeting him.
Rule number 7, master the art of persuasion.
Persuasion in anything. So if you want to persuade your children, if you want to persuade someone to take a look at your faith, if you want to persuade someone in business, if you want to persuade someone to help you in anything or help them in anything, it's real simple for me. Monster belief. And so you can't transfer to me that which you're not experiencing yourself, right? So you can't give me that. People are always trying to come up with a magic word, the magic close, the magic this. And there are words you should and shouldn't use in persuasion, no question about it, right? There are words that are more effective than other words. And clearly to be successful in any business, you need to know what those words are in your business. But the best persuaders, the best motivators, the best speakers, the best physicians, the best school teachers, the best parents are incredible persuaders. And what they do is they come from a monster place of conviction and belief that they can transfer you to, because people respond to energy much more than they do words. They respond to what they feel, not what they hear and see. Hear and see are real low-level influencers. Energy, spirit, transfer of energy is what people respond to. And so I'm cognizant all the time of getting in a state of total belief and certainty about what it is that I'm going to represent or speak on, if I'm speaking on stage about a particular topic, and then transferring that energy into people. And that seems generic or hokey, but it's actually what great persuaders do. In fact, if you're listening to this, you think of anybody that you know who's incredibly persuasive. They may have great words, they probably do, but it's something you feel from them, right? And that's the difference between a great doctor and a so-so doctor. Great doctor says, here's the prescription, you're out of here. Another one,
is this going to work or not? I don't know.
Another one, you leave there feeling that you're going to be healed, feeling you're in good hands. You feel their certainty, you feel their confidence. Same when you hear a speaker, if you're buying real estate from somebody. But it's not just buying things, it's a great pastor in a church. A great person, if you do TM, who's taught you TM, it's their certainty, it's the energy you feel. And so for me, it's always getting to, I have to really believe what I'm saying. I have to really feel it to transfer to.
Rule number 8, get up fast.
You and I have watched with every successful person that we know. Everyone gets hammered, man. Everyone gets knocked down. Mm-hmm. You miss a close. Someone changes their mind. You get rejected in an interview. You lose your baseball career, whatever the hell it is. It's not whether you're getting knocked down. It's not even whether you'll get up. Everybody eventually gets up. Everybody gets up.
Yeah.
It's the time you're on your ass. It's the time you stay on the mat. So what happened was my dream got squashed. Instead of laying around for 6 or 8 months, I was up immediately, like that day, off the mat. Now my eyes are open. Your eyes are closed when you're on the mat.
Yeah.
And so the longer you stay on the mat, just because you've been defeated, you've now become blinded, as you said, and it's a preventer from getting any other opportunity or blessings in your life. Mm-hmm. So the key is getting your butt up, like literally getting up and opening your eyes again and chasing again. You're going to get up, so you might as well do it now.
Rule number 9, rely on your habits.
Here's the thing that I get asked all the time. How did you stay motivated all the time? People ask me that all the time. And the answer is, I didn't. And neither did you to become successful. The separator in life is really important. People think the most inspired, motivated person wins. Nah, not really. It's the person who can work on the days they're not inspired and motivated. It's what do you do when you're not feeling great? What do you do when it's not your best day? How do you do that? Carries you through is rituals and habits. So when you're fatigued, when you're tired, when you're under pressure, you react reflexively. And so successful people rely on habits and rituals, not just their inspiration and motivation level. Of course, we're both professionals at being motivated and inspired. But that's not every day, every minute. And so what do? I work on the days because my habits and rituals carry me through. And so for me, here's how I look at my life and my day. If I can control the first 30 minutes of my day, and the last 30 minutes of my day, I have a whole lot better chance of the middle of my day being controlled. And so I'm a freak about the first 30 minutes of every day. It's really about the first 45 minutes, and I'm obsessive about the last 45 minutes of every single day. That gives me some illusion in my mind and measure of control. The other thing it does, it delivers to me habits and rituals that serve me, that I do every day that are consistent. It gives me comfort in stormy times. That ocean out there is raging at the top right now, right? The waves are crashing. At the bottom of that ocean, it's completely calm. At the bottom of that ocean is the habitual part of the water, right? It's the part of the water that stays the most consistent. That's why it's so calm, okay? So when you see someone out of control, their emotions are up and down all the time. This is someone who is without rituals and habits. Successful people have those, and so they do. And so it keeps me calm, it keeps me comfortable.
Rule number 10, be a champion.
This morning was very unusual. Number one was the water was unusually cold this morning, really cold. And the waves were huge, very big waves this morning. And both of those things made me think about business. And there's an application for you that I wanted to share with you. The first one was just getting into the water this morning. It was freezing. And when I had to get in there, I had to make a decision. How do I get in? Do I kind of take my time where I go my feet in first, kind of get adapted, and then come out, get adapted, go back in up to my waist, get a little warmer, then come back in up to my neck? You get the deal. But all that would do is extend the pain. All that does, it's logical, it makes sense. Don't go until you're ready, take your time. But really all that does, what does that really do? That extends the pain. And so I didn't do that. I did what the pros do, right? Which is what people do in every endeavor that are champions, is I ran, boom, right in, headlong, right into the water, right? You dive in, boom, there's a shock. But then you get adapted so much more quickly than you could possibly imagine, and then you're off to riding the waves. Well, the same is true in business. The champions in everything, I don't care if it's your fitness, if it's your family, your faith, you name it, the way that you get great at something is you dive into it and get adapted quickly, and you'll be surprised at your ability to adapt and navigate your way through success. The average people in everything, frankly, the people who lose are the ones who constantly take their time. They're too logical. They think, well, I can't do this until I'm ready. If I'm not ready, I'll mess it up. And I don't want to it's too cold. It's too freezing. Well, the truth is, in business, that's not how it works. If you go slow, you're extending the time you're in pain. And worse yet, well, the champions have already dove in, got acclimated. They're out there riding their waves, making progress. You're still on the shore deciding whether you're going to get ready to get ready. And so if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, you're somebody getting associated with my firm, which is a wonderful decision, by the way. But if you're going to decide that, you've got to decide that and go and trust the fact that you have your instincts, your background, your training, your mentors, the system around you. And that's true whether you're an entrepreneur in my business or you're one of these firms that I've spoken to on the outside. I want to encourage all of you, if you're going to get into business and go. You'll be amazed at your capacity to evolve and to adapt and to succeed.
Rule number 11, grow you.
I don't believe in faking it till you make it. Because you know what entrepreneurialism is, right? It's the greatest self-discovery process in the history of mankind. Isn't it? You learn more about yourself, what you don't know, your resiliency, how tough you are, what your weaknesses are by being an entrepreneur. It's probably the greatest self-discovery program in the history of the world. It's also this. It's the greatest self-improvement program with the highest compensation package possibly attached to it too. That's what entrepreneurism is, a self-improvement program with massive compensation package attached to it. And that's why too many of you are too focused on growing your company and not focused enough on growing you, because your company will never, ever exceed your identity or your vision for it. You got to grow you, because what will happen when it starts to grow, you'll start making unconscious mistakes to shrink it, making bad calls, getting weak, getting lazy, making mistakes. You're all nodding because you've all done it, because at some point your business got ahead of you. It will never exceed your identity and your vision, because if the company catches your vision, if the company catches your identity, you're dying.
Rule number 12, be in a state of gratitude.
I'm grateful that I have the money for the plane ticket still. Right. It's odd how small things. I love big things. I love having my jet, but I make sure that I'm grateful for what most people will think are small things, and I really am. Like I had some health issues when I was younger with my heart. I am grateful many mornings I wake up. My day starts with gratitude. I'm awake many, many mornings. Yeah. And so that's a centerpiece of my life. It's odd because I have all these things in my head from when I was a kid. Like gratitude is sort of the antidote for everything not good in my life.
Rule number 13, care about people.
What would you say is your greatest asset, skill?
I love people, man. I care about people. I sincerely do. And so whether that's, I want to help you. I want to, people say, how do you get back to all these people on social media? Or I care. You know, you and I have talked about that fact. Like my intent is good, man. I want to make a difference in the world. You know, we're all put here for a reason, and like, it sounds hokey. Like I've made a lot of money. Like I'd like to make more money, but it's not really a driver for me.
Right. You've got a bunch of homes, and
I feel that need. It's not long lasting. No material thing I've ever acquired was as cool as I thought it would be.
It's cool for a week or two, and then you're like, all right, now what?
Now what, right? It's empty. And so, by the way, I think everybody should have a jet if they can have one. Everybody ought to have a unicorn in their waterfall. Everybody ought to live oceanfront. Like I say this to people all the time. I've been happy rich and I've been happy poor. Happy rich is better. So just don't let anybody tell you happy rich ain't better than happy poor. Trust me, it's better. And money's a magnifier. If you're a really good person, you get a bunch of money, it's probably going to magnify your generosity and your kindness and your patience. And if you're a curmudgeon and mean and hurt people, money's going to magnify that too. So I'd rather have a bunch of money, hands down, right? But it's not something that drives me in my life. It doesn't fulfill me.
Rule number 14, stop negotiating the price.
When I was poor, everywhere I went, flip the price tag on. What's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? What's it cost? I was constantly negotiating the price for everything in my life. You do that when you come from a place of scarcity, of being poor. Successful people and wealthy people have a subtle distinction. They don't look at price, they look at worth. Is this worth it? If you're constantly looking at the price tag, you'll eventually relent. You'll eventually give in. Stop negotiating the price. It's a freeing experience to totally commit. When you totally commit to a relationship, to a business, to your fitness, to your faith, it's a freeing, powerful, it's almost like removing kryptonite from your life when you totally commit. Can you do that? The people around you always talk, it's costing too much. It's costing too much. And you go, maybe it's costing too much. You gotta start going, no, it's worth it. It's not the price, it's the worth. It's a subtle distinction in your life.
Rule number 15, have perseverance.
You've been very successful as an entrepreneur. Have you always been successful?
You just said the word entrepreneur and always successful, so you
Thank
know.
you. Listen to him. I try to tell everybody this. Nobody listens to me. I haven't met one entrepreneur that's like, oh yeah, everything I have ever done works.
Come on, bro.
And they're lying if they're telling
Well,
you
they're not an entrepreneur. They inherited something, or I don't know.
Right, mostly inherited.
Right, because if you're an entrepreneur, you have not always been successful, right? So
from Steve Jobs down,
all the way. And so I've had successes. And then I'll go backwards. So like most entrepreneurs, there's false start after false start after false start. So I would get it going, then it would go backwards. I'd save some money, then I'd blow it. You know, my business would grow, then it would shrink. And so no, I've had tons of different financial events happen in my life. And actually, after people thought I was pretty successful, I'd become a millionaire. About 26 years old, I'd become a millionaire. I was making $1 million a year, and I ended up losing it all. And I lost a home, I lost a car, I ended up moving into an apartment. I was newly married, and I'll never forget this. I remember, because this ocean's out there, we're looking at it right now, and I remember, honestly, defining moment. I had everything turned off. You can have power turned off and still survive. One thing I learned, you don't want your water turned off. And we had the water cut off. Oh. So I'm
with your newlywed.
My newlywed, 6 weeks married.
She's still with you?
She's still with me. She's floating around here somewhere.
That's it, man.
Yeah, she's with me.
We got so much in common.
I know we do. Both high school and the same thing with our wives. And long story short, we had to go every morning out of the apartment, go down to the pool, and shower outdoors. And you bring our toothbrush. It was just shameful for me.
Rule number 16, keep the promises you made to you.
The key to self-confidence is really simple. And this is absolutely, I've trained hundreds of thousands of people. I've spoken to millions of people around the world. I can tell you this, the self-confident people I know, whether they are athletes, school teachers, mechanics, parents, stay-at-home moms, you name it, they have a pattern of keeping promises they make to themselves. The groundwork of beginning to build self-confidence is to begin to keep the promises you make to you. And that's why it's important to begin to even make small promises. If you're going to get up at a certain time in the morning, not only do it, but then give yourself credit. Say, I did what I said I was going to do. If it's in your diet or your fitness, don't just eat the healthy foods. Go, I'm doing what I said I was going to do. You begin to build this reputation. If you're constantly being influenced and moved by what other people think about you, it means there's a deficiency in what you think about you. And so the key is not some, esoteric like belief system. It's a pattern of keeping the promises that you make to you. That's the groundwork of self-confidence for sure. And it is a pattern. When I meet people that lack confidence, I think, let me serve you. Let's begin to keep the promises you make to you. You're so worried about, there's this addiction to other people's approval in the world, right? It's the greatest addiction today. It used to be drugs. Before that, it was alcohol. There's all these addictions, sex addictions, whatever. The number one addiction in the world today is the addiction to other people's approval. And that's because we don't approve of ourselves. We don't feel a spirit, a universe, a God that we believe in that approves of us. And so my confidence comes from both my faith and in the fact that I keep promises I make to myself. That's the groundwork of all confidence to me.
Rule number 17, max out your life.
See, at the end of my life, the Lord's going to go, hey, by the way, this guy over here, this was the man you could have been. This is the person you were born to be. This would have been your dreams. This is where you would have gone, what you would have seen, who you would have helped, what you would have changed. This would have been your book. Meet him. My dream in my life
is that when I meet that person, we're not total strangers. You don't want to get to the end of your life and that character is a total stranger to you. You know damn well there's going to be a funeral for you someday. At that funeral, there's going to be a sense and a spirit of what you could have become, the woman, the man you could have become. And every day those decisions you're making to max out your life are chasing that person. See, you know what I want at the end of my life when I meet him? I want to be identical twins. Ted and Ed are going to meet each other someday, and I'm going to say, hey man, good to see you. Been chasing you, man. He's going to go, I've been watching you. You're exactly like me, man. We're identical twins. You maxed out your damn life. Congratulations.
Rule number 18, get quiet.
I believe everything has a vibration. And so everything has an energy, right? And so that I have, without getting too complicated, I have to quiet myself, because when I get quiet, I vibrate at a higher frequency. And so that I can tap into, see, the same thought, the same energy that made this ocean, that made the world, that made you and I have access to that limitless, absolutely perfect thinking in mind. And so the only way that I get that is by getting out of my own way, getting out of my own space, getting out of my own junk. And so I access it from me by getting quiet. The key to my life is that in the morning, and I do it in the morning, it's nice now that I can do it with the ocean here, I also live on a lake, is it doesn't take a long time, I just take 20 minutes and I access it and I get quiet. And the only way I can access it is to get out of my head. And so I quiet and empty my mind, and I access the universe. That's what I do.
Rule number 19, hustle.
Mom and dad work?
Mom worked in the home, raised 4 kids. My dad worked in a bank, very successful executive in a bank.
Okay. Now, so were you learning something from him about being an executive or dressing or money?
I learned about my dad real simple. Hustle and busting ass. So my dad was up before I was up in the morning, out of the house. My dad would get home when it was dark. I watched my dad bust his tail. I watched my dad work Saturdays.
And then he came and had a couple cocktails.
He did for a long time. And that was probably, by the way, why I was coming home so late for a while. But in my mind, and even after he became sober, he just, like a lot of men of that generation, my dad just busted his damn tail. I think it's almost a lost art form with younger guys today, right? My dad just flat busted it. Now, he busted it because he was just trying to provide limiting things like food and shelter. He never thought about big things or dreams or getting wealthy or having influence. He just wanted to survive.
Rule number 20, talk about your dreams.
So this was my dream place to live. All my life, I wanted to live in Laguna Beach, California, in Three Arch Bay. I wanted to live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and I wanted to be able to play golf out in the beautiful desert in Palm Desert. I live in those dream places, and one of the reasons I live there is because I talked about my dream early in my life. There's power to just talking about, just telling people, just putting in writing what your dream is. And so I'm curious, do this for me. Comment below right here and tell me and tell the world where your dream place to live is. What's your dream place to live? I want to see your comments below.
Rule number 21, take control of the script of your life.
You ever go to the movies and at the end of the movie they scroll down like the leading characters' names, and then what do they do if you keep watching it? Cab driver number 2, bouncer at the bar number 1. You ever see those faceless people? Far too many of you in your life are obsessed with what cab driver number 2 and bouncer number 1 think about what you're doing instead of the lead characters. You're obsessed with what other people think about you. The thing that's gonna kill your dream is your addiction to other people's approval. And cab driver number 2, he ain't gonna approve of what you're doing. And at the end of your damn life, he's not gonna show up in any of the important chapters. Yet you give him all this power all the time. Stop giving people power who aren't in your book. Do your life for the leading character. You, your spouse, your children, your parents, your legacy. They're the lead characters in the story of you, of your life. Because the more you decide to take control of the narrative, of the script of your life, and you live your dream, the more likely at the end of your life, you're gonna meet that dude.
Rule number 22, be fueled by pain.
There's a Malcolm X quote that you really like.
Yeah.
Tell me what it is and why it's so powerful.
That which you do not hate, you will eventually tolerate. And I think that identifies most people's lives. In other words, average becomes sort of like this slow asphyxiation. It's almost like an anesthetic. And that over time we become kind of immune and dulled to the average that we're becoming. I know this is true, at least for me. You probably experience it yourself too. And so over time, we sort of minimize where we're at. In other words, I'm a little pudgy instead of being, no, you're a fat ass, right? You don't magnify the degree to which the pain ought to be affecting you. And so really what he means in that is, listen, you're gonna get out of your life what you'll accept. That's really difficult for people, I think, to understand is, look, what you think you're worth and what you're gonna tolerate is absolutely what you're gonna bring into your life and what the outward part of your life's gonna look like. And so I live by that. Like, I let myself sort of feel the pain and the difficulty
of being not where I want to be in whatever that area is, whether it's my spirituality, my relationships, my money. I let myself feel that pain because, as you know, there's two motivators, right? There's the gaining of pleasure, right? Wanting to go get something, chasing the dream. But then there's the avoidance of pain. And for a lot of champions, that's a pretty big driving force for them. And so at least for me, I leverage both of those things on me to get myself to take action.
Rule number 23, stop worrying what others think.
Trying to prove people wrong or right about you is a cheap level of motivation, and it will wear out. In other words, it's not the lack of it. It's just, it's not the best type. People say, well, hey, Tom Brady, 6th-round draft pick. I mean, he's constantly trying to prove them that they picked the wrong guys. I know Tommy a little bit, and I can tell you, that motivates him, but if you think he's become the greatest football player of all time because he's trying to prove people from 20 years ago wrong about where he was drafted, you don't get elite performance. Tom Brady is where he is because he sets standards for himself and has massive goals and ambitions for himself, not to prove other people wrong. I promise you, when he's sitting under center in the Super Bowl, he's not going, I was a 6th-round draft pick. That's not what moves him. And so I think it's low-level motivation. I do it too, and the sooner you drop, it's the symptom of the same disease. So proving your family wrong or right is a symptom of the same disease, which is you are still obsessed with what other people are thinking about you and not doing things that make you happy, that enrich you, that fulfill your soul. And so the irony about spending your life worrying about what everybody else thinks about you, here's the irony, is that those people will never be thought about after they're dead. So they spend their life obsessing with everyone thinks about them, only to die and have no one ever remember them. Because people that are so obsessed with what other people think about them never really ever fulfill their potential. So once you can drop that addiction, whether it's friends, strangers, or your parents, and you begin to do things that fulfill you, that make you happy, that change other people's lives by your contribution, now you can be remembered. Now your life echoes into eternity, even if it was a quiet life.
Rule number 24, always give your all.
I remember going, all the work I put into this, all the hopes my family and I had, all the travel ball, everything we did, all the games, all the great plays, all the errors I made, the fly ball I dropped at Fullerton, all that stuff. I was going to get drafted, then I did all that stuff, right? The guys I played with, over. Like a flicker, man. Like a flicker, that crap was over. And we're on that bus ride back, and I remember thinking, man, I should have tried harder. I should have played harder. I should have given this more. You know that stuff guys do, man. You're running sprints. There's 2 dudes who run every sprint full speed, and then there's the dudes who run 80%, 6 of them. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? He's kind of cool. Doesn't matter. I'm not the fastest guy, so no one will know when I don't win the sprints. You know those guys. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? This is a guy kind of doesn't really catch the ball on his throwing side in the outfield. When he's worried, catches it over, does everything wrong, throws it back. That's the thing that costs a guy getting thrown out at 3rd and you lose by a run because you just practice like that. The guy in the bullpen is kind of like not really focused. He's just kind of getting loose, right? Instead of just laser focused on everything he's doing all the time. Right? You don't want to leave here. You don't want it to end. Whether it ends in the big leagues, it ends in the minor leagues, it ends here, or you never even get on the field this year. Okay? Having wondered whether you gave it all you got, because it's going to transfer into the man you become when you leave here, and most importantly, it's going to be your identity. When you get tired, when you get fatigued, when you get down, when you're in a slump, it's your habits, rituals, routines, and your standards that carry you through. And if you don't have good habits, you don't have good rituals, you don't have good routines, always in your life you will fall down in bad times, in slumps and fatigue and in stress.
Rule number 25, bring real value to people.
The reason that I think my stuff has grown, and I'm not trying to be braggadocious in this regard, my content's good. Like, my content is stuff that can really affect you and change you. I'm not going to tell you 1,100 times to get you money. I'm not going to tell you to be kind 1,100 times and just repeat myself, or binary and all this stuff. The guys just keep repeating themselves, and it's mindless information. I don't even understand how they have following, to be honest with you. It's like, I've heard you say this same thing 2,000 different times, whereas I'm trying to keep my content fresh, relevant, inspirational, but also strategic. And that's not knocking people. It's just, I think you do this very well. Like, if you're going to be in this space, really bring value to people. You know what I mean? If people are going to follow you, give them value and inspiration for the privilege of them following you. So I feel an obligation to try to create stuff daily when I can to move someone's life forward.
Rule number 26, overcome difficulties.
when I was really coming up in business, I went so broke that power's turned off, the phone's turned off. I had my wife's car got repoed. You can have all that happen to you, but what you don't want to ever have happen is have your water turned off. And I had the water turned off in our apartment right when we were newlyweds. And I just remember the shame of every morning getting up with her, and we'd have to walk down the stairs to the pool outdoors and take our shower, brush our teeth in that outdoor shower, then grab our stuff up. I'd walk my new bride up to our apartment, and it was just shameful for me, you know? And so I'm grateful to live here. And sounds corny, but I'll just tell you the honest to God truth. It's not every single morning, but there are many mornings when I pull the faucet in the shower and the water hits me, and that's where the gratitude hits me. I'm like, it's got my water. Not just the ocean back there, but just literally that, I know what that's like to be scared. I wasn't just broke, I was scared.
Rule number 27, work out.
I think everything in our lives starts with our body. If you're a person of faith, you believe that's where your soul is housed, right? And so it's you do emotions. You don't just feel them, you do them. In other words, and you know this from things you've learned in your life, but like joy is an actual action, not just an emotion. We feel a certain joy, there's a certain breathing, a certain movement in our body. Depression and sadness is something we do. We're more hunched over. Our breathing is more shallow, right? And so there's a correlation between the way you move your body and your emotions. They're directly, this is even before we get to dopamine hits and our nervous system I'm just telling you that the way you move your body is an emotion. You do emotions. And so when you move your body, you can't be in full workout mode, moving your body, running, walking, jumping jacks, jump rope, and be depressed. They don't go together simultaneously because your body doesn't get the connection. I'm moving like I'm joyful. I'm moving like I'm having sex. I'm moving like I'm happy. These are all joyful states. You can't be depressed simultaneously. So the quickest way to change our behavior, our emotions, and our state is with our body.
Rule number 28, keep the promises you make to you.
The people I know that are really happy are very self-aware. In fact, the best entrepreneurs I know are very self-aware. They're aware of their shortcomings, right? They want to improve them. They want to get to the next version of themselves all the time. And so for me, self-confidence comes because I didn't have it. And I think anytime you meet somebody like yourself or myself who might now appear self-confident, it's because I really had to find tools and resources because I was so insecure and shy and introverted. So I had to find techniques and resources to build that up in me. And for me, it's very simple. It's the promises that I keep to myself. If I have a habit over and over of beginning to stack one on top of the other of keeping promises I make to me, not other people. In other words, the minute you begin to get external in your life, worrying about what other people think about you, right? You've lost all control. And it never fills you up. And people's admiration, people's gratitude towards you will never fill you up. It's your own. It's your own inside. And so for me, self-confidence comes from keeping the promises I make to myself. And the other part of it is being aware I'm doing it. In other words, most people don't give themselves enough credit all the time. They're very aware of these 20% things and not aware of the 80, right? And that's why the dosage is so important too. You've nailed it. It should be 80-20, right? Because people get addicted to this. I'm not good at this. People don't like this about me. I don't feel good. Instead of focusing on the 80 and stacking it up. Wow, I did eat what I said I was going to today. I did get up when I said I was going to. I made the amount of phone calls. I treated people in such a way I promised myself. It's not just doing those things. It's rewarding it. It's being aware of it and stacking that up.
Rule number 29, defeat your fears and insecurities.
Well, I love that how sometimes the things that we think are the biggest inconvenience end up being the best blessings.
Absolutely, man. Almost every single time. In fact, I posted a speech today that I gave to, I got invited back to speak to my college alma mater's baseball team. I played college baseball at University of the Pacific. And I went back there and spoke to the guys. And there's a part in the talk where I tell them that I was so introverted. My senior year, I wasn't going to graduate, and I had to take 2 electives because I wasn't going to graduate. And I had previously dropped out of a sign language class. Sign language, because I had to get up in front of the class and sign. I didn't even have to even speak. I just wouldn't walk up there and move my fingers around, and I dropped the class. And so it put me where I wasn't going to graduate. And so the only class I could take to graduate was drama and public speaking. And I had to take them both. And in the public speaking class, I found a giftedness of mine, right? And so what you're saying is completely true. I talk about it in this speech. Typically on the other side of your greatest fear, of your greatest insecurity, is your greatest blessing. Everyone goes, well, get out of your comfort zone, you'll find things. No. What you're afraid of and what you're insecure about, on the other side of that is typically one of the great gifts or blessings in your life. And so that's exactly right. You and I are talking right now because I took a public speaking class my senior year I was stone ass afraid of in college. That's why you and I are talking right now. So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely
and
right.
how many people have been touched now because of you taking that class?
And mutual, right? And somehow that blessing, that's seemingly inconsequential, scary pain in the ass for me, changed my entire life and has changed, frankly, millions of other people's lives because I went around that thing I was afraid of. It's like you don't even know the magnitude of what it's costing you to give into your fears and insecurities. And by the way, insecurities and fears are different things. They're both really insidious, detrimental things that people struggle with. And so on the other side of your fear, that's one thing. And on the other side of your greatest insecurity are blessings. And you have no idea the immeasurable waves that you're missing in your life because you are giving into them and cowering to them. And so it's like my life's totally different.
Take me a little deeper there. What's the difference between fear and insecurity?
Well, fear is something that as you stare at it, there's a reaction in your body that's actually healthy. It's to protect you. We have fear in our nature because way back in the day, this is how we survived, right? So fear is not an unhealthy thing. What it is it's an alert to you that, hey, there's something here you need to be more aware of. Fear is an awareness emotion. What most people think is it's an avoidance emotion. Fear is to make you aware, right? So I had a little fear in an odd way when my daughter was being born, when my son was being born. I wasn't afraid of having a daughter. It was an awareness of all the great things that could come with it and my fear of what could go wrong that day, right? So thank God my daughter was born. So that fear wasn't some sign it shouldn't happen or we shouldn't go through with it. It was a hyper awareness. Insecurity is a lie you tell yourself. Insecurity is completely different. Insecurity is mainly things that don't exist that you should not be aware of. So ironically, people conflate these two things. And insecurity is something that you've told yourself that is more than likely a lie about you. I'm stupid. I'm short. Nobody loves me. No one's going to listen to me. I'm not strong enough. I'm going to blow this, right? What are they going to think about me? These are all fabrications of your imagination. Fear is a real thing that you should acknowledge and see and respond to favorably. Insecurities are lies. And so most people don't make that distinction, and they actually think their insecurities are things they should be aware of, when in fact insecurities are things you should not be aware of. Totally different thing.
Rule number 29, defeat your fears and insecurities.
You wanted to be a professional baseball player, is that right?
Yeah.
But then you got an injury.
I did.
Similar to me. So you never made it to the big leagues, or did you play minor league for a little bit?
I did, yeah, and I played Division I college baseball too. Yeah, I, like every guy, like you and I talked about this last time, it's always our injuries that ended our careers. It probably put me into a premature place where I was going anyways. I don't know that I was
You weren't going to be in the bigs for...
I wasn't. I played enough baseball with guys who ended up in the big leagues to know my limitations.
Yeah.
And so, like anything in life, things happen for you, not to you. That injury happened for me. It certainly didn't seem like it at the time, but it got me out of that and into something like what we're talking about now that completely changed my life. So yeah, I wanted to be an athlete for sure all my life.
All your life.
That was my mask.
And then when then when it ended, your identity was like, who am I, right?
Yes, lost. Yeah, like a lot. You and I were just talking this before we went on.
Yeah.
You know, our professional athlete friends were their career changes. I went into like anybody, like whatever your dream is, when the first one ends, it doesn't happen, whether that be a relationship, it could be your marriage, it ends. It was a dream, right? Or a business venture or a sport. I went into a pretty good depression. And
how old were you at the time?
21, 22. Yeah. And I ended up, you know, it's because people always see the after, like the house or whatever, houses or whatever the material things are. But I ended up bad, man. I ended up depressed. I ended up moving back at home with my parents. I was living in the same, I remember I was sleeping in the same bed I grew up in with the same teddy bear, the same posters on the walls, like going back in time, like 6 years, I'm back where I was, totally unemployed. And couldn't find work, didn't have the motivation to get up and find a job, just sort of eating out of their fridge and laying around all day. So that's where I was many, many years ago after baseball. And when you realize things in your life happen for you truly, especially in hindsight, everybody knows it in hindsight, right? If you look back at any disaster, tragedy, most people look back 5-10 years later, they go, that happened for me. That was actually a good thing. And so I was unemployed. I couldn't find a job. And my old man, my dad, was the best dad role model you could ever have in your life. hardworking man, good man. He's a better man than me, has more integrity than me. He's the best man I've ever known. But when I was growing up, my dad had a drinking problem. And so my dad had gotten sober recently, and he was going to these meetings. And he comes home from one of his meetings and says, there's a guy at my meeting who can get you a job. It's right down the street in San Dimas. You're going to be working with kids. Doesn't pay anything at $6 an hour, but you're going to get this damn job. So show up there tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., ask for Tim. So I drive down there. It's a place called McKinley Home for Boys. Little did I know that would alter my entire life. That was the most significant thing that happened to me. And so I walk in there. I said, I'm Ed Mylett. I'm here for the job. They're like, what job? I'm like, I don't know. Just my dad told me to show up here.
Yeah.
And I need to ask for Tim. They're like, we have no idea who the hell Tim is. What's his last name? I said, I don't know his last name. And they're like, so you showed up for a job that you don't know what it is and you don't know who it is that's hiring you. I'm like, here's what I know. He's an alcoholic. I'm like, oh, Tim. Yeah, we know that Tim. And so they bring me to the guy and he says, you're hired. Let's go. Like literally shakes my hand and you're hired. And he introduces me to these 8 boys that were my boys. They were 7, 8, and 9 years old. And basically I lived with these boys, these precious boys. And we ended up adding a few more. My boys were all wards of the court. They were all molested by family or parents were in prison. And so they had no family. And so my whole life changed. All of a sudden, I'm this 22-year-old guy. These guys become my sons.
Wow.
And I did holidays with them. I did birthdays with them. I lived with them.
Literally in a home or like a boarding dorm?
McKinley is a massive campus full of children that have been displaced from their homes that live in individual like cottages.
Like a foster care facility.
Massive though.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. All boys. It's in San Dimas here. And
wow.
It just altered my life, man, because I'd been an athlete, had a huge ego, had that mask. I wanted to compete. I wanted to win. I wanted attention. I wanted recognition. First time literally in my life I went, wow, I love helping people. I love making a difference. And my boys were just come from horrendous situations. And so I always say this all the time, and I have those eyes too, you have them. I think sometimes kids who grow up with some dysfunction, they just have different eyes.
Yeah.
They just have these eyes these boys all were different, but they had that same eyes. They're just like, man, love me, believe in me, care about me. And I had those eyes because I grew up in an alcoholic family and my whole life changed. I just went, wow, I actually love helping people and being involved in people's lives. I didn't know that because everything was, you're great. You know what it is when you're an athlete, right?
Sure.
Everything's about you. You're amazing. Free dinners, free this. You're a stud. All of a sudden, I wasn't a stud. And all of a sudden, it wasn't about me. It was about these 10 boys that ended up being 10 of them. And it just altered my life, man. And so after that, I ran into the financial business that I ended up in. But I would have completely flunked out of that financial business had I not been with my boys for those years. And I was there for 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, man.
Like 8 hours a day type of thing? Or
sometimes more, sometimes 16, 18. I think about, I'm not kidding you, I think about my boys and my experience there. 2 of them are still very close with me. Every day, there's a moment where I reflect on that. It altered me completely, like what I wanted to do. I always wanted to be famous and rich and successful, and now I just wanted to serve.
Yeah.
I wanted to help. Little did I find out I could get rich and famous and all that other stuff I thought I wanted through serving people.
Rule number 31, ignore the haters.
There's a thing in our culture that's killing our culture. It's killing success, and that is that we've become addicted to other people's opinions. We've become addicted to other people's approval. And social media is wonderful, but it's all about how many likes do you get? How many selfies can you take? That may feel good when you get it, but then what it does is it governs your behavior. You begin to only do things to seek other people's approval. And even when you get it, right, it's short term. It doesn't really feel very good. It's not fulfilling. What we really want is not just success. We want fulfillment. The way we get fulfillment is self-respect, is self-confidence. And that's how somehow in your life you must begin to separate what you do from what people think about it. You know this. The people that have really won in life and in business, they eventually drop the addiction to what other people think about them. They're most concerned about what they think about them, or if they're a person of faith, of what their God thinks about them, not the rest of the world. Because the higher you climb, the more haters you're going to have. There's absolutely no question about it. You ought to hope you have more of them. The only thing I will warn people of is the higher you climb, the closer to you the haters are. So right now, if you're at one level of success, it's people at a distance that are haters. But as you climb higher, there's always the 1 or 2 people in your close circle who begin to try to pull you back down because they think you're leaving them. They make your success is making them uncomfortable about where they are. And so they begin to do everything they can to pull you back down. So the closer the haters are to you, the even more success you're having.
Rule number 32, practice gratitude.
I had a really good friend of mine. I went to lunch and he said, I don't know who this guy is here in front of me. And he goes, let me ask you a question, honestly. Right now, what are you grateful for? And at the lunch, I said, jack shit. Nothing, brother. There's nothing good in my life right now. And I'm not exaggerating this to you when I tell you this, and this is a factual story. As I'm mouthing these words, 2 people walked in with an older man. Both of them clearly were fighting cancer somehow. Both had lost their hair. One of the ladies had a bonnet on, and they were barely moving in. Both walked by our table and gave me the most warm greeting, the warmest smile as a stranger. And he goes, that's pretty freaking pathetic. You can't find anything in your life to be grateful for right now. And on the drive home, I'm not kidding you, I started to stack gratitude. I started to take inventory. Because if you can find things to be grateful for in that space, man, is your life going to be rich when there really are external things to be grateful for. So my first mechanism out of that space was honestly to stack the things I was grateful for. And I started reinforcing it over and over and over again. And what happens is there's this reticular activating system in our brains, right? And all of a sudden, because that's the messaging I was giving myself, all of a sudden, all these things start to come into my awareness that I'm grateful for. I start to magnetize to myself some people that I needed to find into my life, and that was the next layer. I started to see things to be grateful for. My health, my fitness, people who loved me. And what it did is it changed my state. When I stacked gratitude, I changed what I did in the morning, and I changed what I did in the evening. And so somehow by grabbing control of my morning and by grabbing control of my evening, I got some measure of control over the middle of my day. I was an out of control person back in those days, meaning this, I woke up worried, stressed, fearful, and I immediately start thinking about a bill I had to pay, something that was wrong, and I'm in a state of reaction to begin I'm talking within 6 minutes of waking up, 6 seconds. Most people listening to this, that's what they do. I said, I got to grab control of my morning, and I set up routines in my morning. Maybe they served me, maybe they didn't, but they were things I could deliver on doing for myself. And so not only did that give me control over the day, but I started to stack my self-confidence too.
Rule number 33, turn your mentors into friends.
I want to turn my mentors into my friends. Like, you know how you and I we're going to become great friends, because the highest level of influence is actually friend. Like if you have kids, anybody out there, the truth is, and most of you guys are so young, but you don't really worry about who their teachers are. That's their mentor. You worry about who they hang out with. You know this from when you were a kid, right? So true. Friends. So you got to turn your mentors into friends long term. But for me, when I was a little boy, I played baseball. Miracle. I'm at a baseball camp. Rod Carew's there, who's a Hall of Fame baseball player. He's the guest coach at the baseball camp. All the other kids are, hey, can I get an autograph? Blah, blah, blah. I went up to him and said, Mr. Carew, will you be my coach? I'm 8 years old.
Wow, 8 years old.
Will you be my coach? I'm this little left-handed hitter. He's Rod Carew. If you don't know who he is, Google it, right? And he goes, I might coach you. Let me see you hit. And I get in the cage and I batted just like him. He used to bat with his bat flat like this instead of up, and I batted just like him. And he ends up meeting my dad and he goes, I was thinking of starting a hitting school. Why doesn't he be my first student? So when I'm 8 years old, my hitting coach ends up becoming Rod Carew until I leave to go to college. Is that crazy?
That's unbelievable.
And then once I got into the business world, though, I knew that principle. And so I would start to put myself in environments. So Tony Robbins has been a major influence on me. Right. I had a goal. My goal was I went to one of his seminars and I'm like, okay, well, that was cool, but I want to know him. And so over time, I sought him out. And then, the way you get a mentor eventually, too, is that somehow there's reciprocity involved. You bring them some value.
Yeah.
You teach them something. You give them something they can't get, whether that's love, belief, care, time, admiration, whatever it is. So Tony's been a major one for me. Phil Knight's been a significant one for me. Stallone's been one. These are, the point of my life now where those are guys that have made a major impact on me. What mentors do for you is they not only teach you things, but they make you want to live up to their belief in them. And I think the other thing is they can hold you accountable differently than you can yourself, because you don't want to let someone down whom you respect, the dad principle that you said earlier, right? So I haven't won in my life because I'm trying to prove something to Tony Robbins. But part of the steps of my life have been when I make a verbal commitment to him that I'm going to do something, I want to build a reputation with him that I keep my promises. Right. And that's different. Yeah. And so that's what my mentors have done for me, and I still seek them out all the time in whatever area that I'm moving towards. I'm always trying to find out who's the best at this, who should I build a relationship with, who should I collaborate with.
Rule number 34, increase your worth.
What are some of the biggest barriers that people face on their journey?
Yeah, the biggest barrier is their own identity. No question about it. It's the way they see themselves. There's the old analogy of the thermostat in the room, right? That you're not going to, if your lifestyle is set at 75 degrees, if you get it going really good and life gets heated up to 80, 85 degrees, unconsciously we find a way to cool things back down and get where we're comfortable.
most people, good people, have a hard time winning. Isn't that ironic? They always tell you good things happen to good people. But the truth is, that's not always the case, because if you're a good person, it means you're moral and you're ethical. And so what moral and ethical people have is this governor, and that is that they don't ever want to take more than they think they're worthy of or they deserve. A bad person will. That's why some of the people even listen to this. People listen to this will say, there's this guy at work and he's always number one on the sales board. He's not a good guy. Because short term, bad people can actually get ahead of good people. Now, they'll always flame out because you do reap what you sow, and it does come home eventually. But for a good person to win, they actually have to increase what they think they're worth or what they're worthy of or what they deserve, because good people will only take from a business, money, anything in life. They'll only take from the table what they think they deserve. So if you can increase your worth, if you can increase what you believe you deserve, then you'll take more from life.
Rule number 35, get in touch with your gifts.
When I was small, I was also really undersized. So it's probably one of the reasons I lift weights. I was always, every baseball picture, I'm the kid holding the sign in the front, right? So I was small and skinny. They used to tease me, Eddie Spaghetti, and I'd get bullied at school, and I never retaliated. So I had that mixed with shyness, mixed with chaos in my home, which many people can relate to. And I got to tell you that the shift for me, sports was good for me because it gave me an out that I finally found something that I was pretty good at. I think the biggest shift in our lives, the things that makes us the happiest, is that when somebody helps us identify our natural giftedness. And when I was a little boy, when I got a little bit older, they pointed out my speed. So it wasn't my lack of size, I was fast. I was the fast kid, right? I always wanted to be fast kid, and I got confidence in baseball doing that. When I got into business, they said, you're intense. When someone points out a gift about you that you also kind of intuitively know to be true, they're linked to them. You're intense, you're passionate, you won't get outworked, you're relentless. I went, I am those things. And when someone linked those gifts to me winning, now I believed I could win. That's the other way to change identity, is when someone can link your giftedness to the victory, you'll believe it. Not like you're great, that's general, that's bullshit. Right. But it's something you know specific, like for you right now, you wouldn't brag about them. There's a few things you know what, I am good at these things, right? I've always been good at these things, it's natural for me. And when someone links that to you winning, like for you, for example, you're an unbelievable interviewer. You have this general, you don't need to be the smartest person in the room because you probably are most of the time. And so there's a confidence that allows you to be present when you interview me and just listen that's different than anyone who's interviewed me before. And so that's a natural giftedness for you, which is why there's a part of you that kind of knows, you wouldn't say it, but I am pretty good at this. This is a good program. And so the way we change identity, the way I changed mine, was by getting in touch with what some of my natural gifts were and then using them in my career, using them in my life. That shifted the weight right off of me. Because the weight was, I suck, I'm shy, I'm small, I have a screwed up family. That's the weight, right? The lifting off of the weight is, these are some gifts God gave me, or the universe gave me, or that at least I know I have, and I can spend my life using these gifts. Now I've got hope. Now my identity's changing. Now my life takes a different direction.
Rule number 36, feed yourself first.
If you really want to be a leader, okay, if you really want to affect other people, you really, truly, if you authentically, like you really want to affect me, here's the bottom line, okay? The bottom line, real effectiveness. You cannot transfer to me something that which you are not experiencing yourself. So you must first experience it before you can give it to me. So if you really want to experience energy, faith, passion, drive, discipline, achievement, you have to be experiencing it first to authentically transfer that to me. Yeah. So you can't always eat last. You can't feed everybody else if you're starving. Yeah. Spiritually, emotionally, financially. You can't feed everyone if you're starving. Jesus could do it because Jesus was fed. He's Jesus. You're a human being. Okay? You're not a deity. And so you must be fed. You must be filled up before you can fill up for everybody else.
Rule number 37, build self-confidence.
I think the first key in building self-confidence, it comes from a foundation of something people don't talk about, which is keeping promises that you actually make to yourself. In other words, self-confident people really are self-trusting people. So they have this habit over time of when they tell themselves they're going to do something, they actually deliver on it. And if you stack up those wins over and over again, if you say, I'm going to get up at a certain time in the morning, or I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to make a certain amount of phone calls, or I'm going to eat a certain way, if you begin to keep those promises you make to yourself, you begin to build that trust within yourself that you can rely on you. And that's really what self-confidence is. And so typically in personal development, they don't tell you this, but it really starts with keeping the promises that you make to you. And that's the foundation all confidence is built on.
Rule number 38, celebrate your life.
There's this thing people think that like, I'll be happy when.
Once I get like this big, amazing home, or once I get this car, or once I get this relationship or an amount of money, then I'll allow myself some happiness. The problem is the finish line always moves. You never arrive there, right? The other part is people think, well, if I enjoy myself now, I'm gonna lose my drive. In other words, if I can just wire myself with enough pain all the time, I won't lose my drive or ambition. The truth is there's no correlation between the two at all. There's no relationship between you feeling complete pain all the time and losing drive. And so I talk about living in a state of blissful dissatisfaction. And really the best example of that would be like if you've ever, I love a good meal, right? You know, if I bite into a great piece of steak, if you're a steak eater like I am, you take that first bite, it's like complete bliss, right? There's no correlation between how great that tasted and your lack of desire for the next bite. In fact, that bliss causes you to want more of it. And so the more we can begin to reward ourselves with bliss, we're not gonna lose our dissatisfaction. We're not gonna lose that. And so for me, our brains, this dopamine hit you get when you do something successful, if you constantly cheat yourself out of that hit, right, biomechanically in your body, less and less in the future will you want to achieve the next level, the next dream, the next step. And that's why so many people stall out in life. They got to a certain point and they cheated themselves out of the bliss, out of the celebration. It's important that we celebrate our wins. We celebrate our lives because it causes us to want the next bite. It keeps us hungrier, not the reverse. And so for me, I want to live in a state of being grateful and blissful now, not waiting for some future place or date that may never arise.
Rule number 39, invest in things you understand.
The biggest money mistake I made in my life is investing in things that I don't understand. And were too complicated.
Like
stocks.
Yeah.
Stocks I bought that I knew nothing about that I heard on at CNBC I should buy. Or having some guy, one of the things I like about your real estate deals, it's straightforward, it's simple, it's easy to understand. If you present me a deal now and I can't regurgitate it back to you real quick in some simple form, I'm not investing in it. I need to at least understand what it is I'm investing in.
Yeah, even if you miss something, you're willing to miss something?
I'll miss something, yeah. I've missed many things.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if I can't understand it or it's too complicated and I can't repeat it back to you pretty quickly, you lost me.
Yeah, so what's the biggest loss you had in not following that advice? What'd you buy? What'd you buy and what'd you lose?
I bought Yahoo stock at about, I don't remember, 75 or 80 bucks a share. And I'm talking like when I had about 3 million bucks, I put like 800 grand in there. And I think I ended up selling it at like 17. I bought Citigroup stock.
What'd you buy that?
I think in the 70s or 80s. I couldn't give you the exact dollar
you
amount.
Lost.
And then like after I learned that lesson, I thought
240 grand.
Yeah,
you lost 700 grand.
And then I'm gonna give you two more biggies. The second one I did is I bought Citibank stock, Citigroup stock at like $54 a share.
Yeah, 2008.
Which was like $700,000 worth of that, and I think I sold it at $2.50 is when I finally sold it because I heard they were going to be the next AIG.
Yeah, they're worth $200.
And then the third one is stuff you talk about. I bought a residential real estate property that did not provide any revenue, did not provide any equity for me, that was, what do you call it? It would be like a trophy property, like, hey, I'm a big shot. Right? I'm in the big time. I bought one of those, and that wasn't that long ago either, and that was a property that I wasn't going to use, wasn't getting leverage out of, didn't generate revenue. I didn't know anything about the market I was buying in. I just wanted to look like a big shot. And I think I lost $2.5 million on that house. And that wasn't that long ago. That's just a few years ago. So I've still made some mistakes in my life. But those are probably the biggest loss is probably that house on one deal was probably that house. I lost 2.5. Maybe I lost 3 million. Maybe I lost 3 million on that.
Rule number 40, max out your life.
What does max out really stand for you? And when did that moment happen where you knew that was going to be part of your brand?
Yeah, my son's name's Max, so that helped. But maxed out to me means this, as you know, your obsessions become your possessions. Whatever you end up being obsessed with, you'll eventually possess. So if you're obsessed with what you're worried about, your fears, your problems, you're going to possess those. And so I became obsessed. The short version is that, and you don't know this, I don't talk about this on camera very much. When I was 30, my uncle died at 50 years old. And he was the guy in my family, we all have this, that you kind of resemble or remind everybody of.
Oh, right.
My dad's brother. He died at 50.
Sorry.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. It's a long time ago now. Yeah. And but he was was my godfather, and in my culture, that's a big deal.
Of course, mine as well.
Yeah, I know. And,
shout out Uncle Mike.
Yeah, mine was Uncle Mike. Wow. Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. It's got chills everywhere right there. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa.
Whoa, man.
That's how the universe works, right?
Whew. Wow, okay. You got me right there. So mine was my Uncle Mike. Wow. And
oh man, that just touched me.
So mine was my Uncle Mike, and that blows my mind right there, brother. So I'm at his funeral. We're flying back. On the flight, there's this thing in your brain called the reticular activating system. It basically filters into your awareness what's important to you. That's why, like, if you buy a new car, all of a sudden you see that car everywhere on the freeway, 3 lanes over, on the other side, boom, another one. They were always there. Why do you see them now? It's filtered into your importance. And heart attacks were he had died of a heart attack. And so I'm on the airplane and I'm listening to music, and on the screen's the Oprah show, but it's in my awareness, and it's a heart on the screen. I'm like, unplug my headphones, plug it into the phone system, and it was about a new heart scan that was happening at Cedars-Sinai, where they could, like, it's common now, but they could non-invasively look at your heart and your arteries. Long story short, I hear it, and I told my wife, I said, schedule me for one of those exams. Right. She's like, it's expensive. I said, I don't care, schedule it. We call, it's a 9-month wait. I go, I need to get in. I keep calling the lady. Finally, she goes, there's a cancellation tomorrow at 2. I go, I'll be there. So I go down for the scan, and thank God this doctor understood influence and leverage. You do the scan, then you come back after lunch. I literally went, ate a burrito, came back. I wasn't in shape. I'm 30 years old. The doctor comes out, and he goes, I'm looking for Edward Mylett. I go, it's Mylett, and he goes, he knew. And he goes, whoa, I can't believe these arteries are in that young a body. Wow. You need to come back, son. Now my heart's racing. I'm like, what the hell's in this scan? We sit down. Instead of what a normal doctor would do, they just go, hey, here's the prescription, take Crestor, work out, eat good, bye. He understood reasons is what changes people's lives. Massive reasons, not discipline, reasons and habits, right? He goes, let me ask you a question. Your wife's beautiful. Do you have kids? I go, yeah. I go, I got a son. He's 1. He goes, that's great. Do you want to be there when he graduates high school? I went, what? He goes, do you want to be there when he graduates high school? I said, yeah. He goes, okay. Is she pregnant, huh? I go, yeah. What is she having? I said, a girl. You get to a dad, this is what you say. He goes, would you like to walk that little girl down the aisle on her wedding day, son? I went, what? What is in this scan, dude? And he goes, I want to be very clear with you, young man. I remember this like yesterday. He goes, I want to be very clear with you, young man. If you continue down the road you're going, another man's going to live with your beautiful wife in your mansion, walk your son at graduation, and he's going to be arm in arm with your daughter on her wedding day, not you. You'll be long gone. Actually, as I tell you this right now, dude, right? Wow. And he goes, what I'm going to get you to do is I'm going to get you to max out your life and your fitness. And I went, give me it. Yeah. And he gave me exactly what I needed to do. And he said, if you do this, you'll walk her down the aisle, blah, blah, blah. From that day, when I get up like I did this morning and I'm tired and I was late last night and I don't want to go to the gym, I swear to you, brother, I swear to you, I go, Bella's wedding, get your ass up. And I go. I'm fit because I have massive reasons. That's why I'm fit. And that started the journey towards maxing out every area of my life. I'm like, if I can do this in my fitness, I can do this in business, I can do this in my spirituality and everything. I'm not going to shortchange myself by pretty good. I'm going to see what my real potential is, what my maximum capacity is every single day. Because at the end of my life, when I do die, I have this belief that when I'm done, the Lord's going to go, well done, good and faithful servant. And by the way, here's the man you could have been. This is the man you were born to be. This is the man you were destined to be. This is where you could have gone, what you could have seen, the memories you could have had, the people you could have helped, the person you could have become. Right. Meet him. My obsession is that every day I'm chasing that dude so that when I do die, we meet, we're identical twins. Because the bad end of a life, whether it would be at 30, 50, or 150, would be I meet that guy and we're total strangers. Yeah. So I'm obsessed with meeting that guy someday, and that's what maxing out means.
Rule number 41, constantly improve yourself.
I can't tell you why I'm this way, but I do believe it was baseball. I never took it personally when a coach said, you're dropping your shoulder. In other words, because of athletics, when a guy said, spread your right leg out, your legs are too close together, I never thought, I suck, I can't hit. I wanted to know how to hit better. I wanted to know how to throw better. And so for me personally, I'm constantly in a crisis to get to the next version of me. It's not like I'd like to. I wish I only would like to. I probably have a little bit more peace in my life. I am in a crisis to get the next version of me. And so the guy sitting in front of you right now, if I come back in a year and I'm just the same exact person with the same thoughts, same ideas, same ways of delivering, remembering them. This was a wasted year of my life, right? So I want to know how to get to that next version of me. And so for those of you that struggle with taking criticism, you got to ask yourself, how important is it to you to grow? Because you were put on earth to grow, to contribute, to serve, to help. You were in your way. And the current version of you is perfect as it stands right now, but it will be inferior next year. You're perfect as you are now, especially you ladies listening to this. There's all this messaging, you're not this, you're not smart enough. Women are too dominant, then they're a diva, right? Or you're not beautiful enough. Ladies, men, you too, you are perfect as you exist right now, but that version of you isn't sufficient next year. You gotta be crazy, hungry, crisis to get to that next version of you. I want the data. I want the input. I want the information. I want the feedback to get to the next version of me, regardless of how it emotionally makes me feel. I'm like driven by that. Without that information, why am I living?
Rule number 42, persuade people.
If I could go back and you could only give me one skill to begin with and I had to build from all of it, I can tell you for sure what it would be for me, and that would be the ability to influence. So it's the ability to persuade people. Without that skill set, the vast majority of my wealth does not exist. If you can't persuade people, if you can't influence people to make decisions that are in their own best interest, but that also grow your business, your brand, your company, your net worth, you can't ever become successful. One thing that everybody I know that's a leader in everything they do can do is persuade people. Now, I watch people do that in all different types of ways. Some do it through intimidation, some do it through force, some do it through humor, some do it through persuasive strategies, transfer of energy, you name it. But all leaders can persuade. All successful people can get people to make decisions in their own best interest that also get them to participate with their company. It's the number one skill that I see most people not spending the most time on, is their ability to communicate, their ability to persuade people. And because they're constantly trying to go to a different course, or they think that somehow if their product is good enough, or they get the right sales pitch, that somehow they're gonna win. But the fact of the matter is, you've got to become a better persuader.
Rule number 43, don't go broke trying to look rich.
Don't go broke trying to look rich. That's one thing everybody's doing right now. They're going broke trying to look rich. So here's what I am. I don't care where you put the money. You know, there's guys out there saying it should be real estate, should be the stock market. If you don't save money when you're broke, this is the thing no one's telling you. If you don't save money when you're broke, I'm talking about 10 bucks a month, 20 bucks a month. The crazy belief system in the world is that you will save it once you make more. If you have a habit of spending, you will spend more when you make more. I know a lot of people who make a lot of money who have a Lamborghini or a car or a house that are dead broke. Dead broke. You all would be shocked by who's really rich and by who's really broke.
Yeah.
You'd be shocked because you either are a spender or you are a saver. When I was 26 years old, I made $750,000 that year, and I was living in a $750 a month apartment.
Right.
I saved and saved.
You know what's really...
Rule number 44, touch your dreams.
Your mind gravitates towards which it is most familiar with. And so if you're really familiar with what you're worried about and what your problems are and your fears are, and that becomes your dominating thinking, I know you've all heard this, but here's the reason why. Your mind loves what's familiar. Okay. And so if you don't go touch dreams, for example, just experience it for a second. For example, we would go down once every 8 weeks. If I did well in business, we really knocked it out. We could find a deal. I had $200. We'd go to the Ritz-Carlton or some hotel, Ocean, and for one day oceanfront, feel like what it felt like to valet your car. Right? Walk in the lobby. Mr. Mylett, welcome back, right? She'd go get a massage. I'd play a little bit of golf. And just for that day, I'd touch the dream. And then maybe we do it again in a month or two and again in a month, just little tastes of it. My mind began to become familiar with it. And more crazy, I started to kind of trick myself into thinking I belonged there. Because we never end up anywhere we don't believe we don't belong, and then we're not familiar with. So there's these things you'd like to do in your life, either visually seeing them over and over again and repeating those images to yourself, that's powerful, but a double whammy is to not only repeat them and see them, but to go see, there's one thing that's a visual stimulus in your brain that makes you want to do something. The triple whammy is if you could see it, touch it, feel it, and smell it. If you allow all your senses to experience something, it becomes far more familiar to your brain. And so I'm a massive massive advocate of touching a dream in any form you can get it, the best of which is actually going and experiencing it short term. You begin to believe you belong there, you're a little bit better. And so you will not probably produce many things in your life that you've not visited either mentally or literally thousands of times. And so if you want to end up somewhere, you better be visiting them. Those could be dreams, visions, but the most important thing is if you could actually, more powerful, is if you could go touch them short term, massive difference. Drive by the neighborhood, see the cars. If you want to spend your life in service for your church or your community, take a day out every month and actually do it. Know what it feels like for an afternoon to feed the homeless and you begin to love it and feel it and believe you belong there. More and more chance that you'll be able to do that full time someday.
Rule number 45, become evangelical about your cause.
One thing I want to challenge you to be as a leader of your business, whether it's just you're a leader of one, which is you as a salesperson, or a leader of 10 as a team, or a company of 25,000 employees, is you must become evangelical about your cause and your mission. The greatest business people have an evangelical property about them. They're evangelizing all the time. They're propagating the strengths, the benefits of their business, of their mission, of their cause. One of the great evangelists of all time is Steve Jobs. There's a great book written by a guy named Guy Kawasaki many years ago called Selling the Dream. And in that book, he talks about the way that Steve Jobs sold the dream of Apple, and he literally called him an evangelist for the cause. There's a great story in that book about Steve Jobs when he was recruiting. He knew he needed to have a CEO of his company, and he wanted to have the best. And at that time, there was a man named Scully who was the head of Pepsi, and Jobs was this young kid in his 20s trying to recruit this executive who had made millions of dollars, and he couldn't get him, and he couldn't get him, and he couldn't get him. And finally, he gets the voicemail back in those days, the answering machine actually of Scully, and he says, Listen, man, when you're tired of selling sugar water to kids over there at Pepsi and you want to come change the world, frickin' call me back and we'll do it together. Boom, and he hangs up, right? He was evangelical about the cause. Sugar water and Pepsi changed the world at Apple, right? And Scully, who's making millions of dollars, he's CEO of one of the most powerful companies in the world, looks to his wife and she says, I think he's right. We aren't changing the world. And it was that one cause-oriented evangelical phone call from Steve Jobs, and it exuded out of his pores. Every stage speech he gave, every one-on-one, every board meeting, when he'd meet with their software engineers, when he'd meet with the programmers, he was always evangelical, internally and externally, and built a culture of one of the greatest movements of all time in the history of business.
Rule number 46, use your time better.
Let me tell you one thing I've noticed about all the max out performers that I've interviewed on my program and that I've known throughout my life for the last 30 years really in business, sports, entertainment, politics, you name it. The elite performers look at time and use time completely differently than the people who perform at an average level. The first thing I want to tell you about people who win, who max out, they are in a much bigger hurry than the people who are average. And I'm not kidding you when I say this. They're in a bigger hurry to get to their destination, to get to their outcome. Their pace is faster. They walk faster. They talk faster. And their expectation when they're going to arrive at their destination is sooner. This may seem like a very small, subtle thing, but I want you to evaluate how big of a hurry are you in? Because there's something to be said about how close you think you are to a goal and how fast you will run to get to the finish line. Let me give you an example of that. If you and I started out right now and we had a 26-mile marathon to run, right? In our minds, it was 26 miles. And we were going to race each other. We would pace ourselves at a certain speed in order to maintain that speed because of the duration of the run. So if it was a marathon, we'd jog, wouldn't we, pretty slowly. You certainly wouldn't sprint 26 miles. And so because the destination, because the finish line is so far away, our pace or our hurry is limited based on how far away we think we are or when we'll arrive there. But if you and I were to run a 100-yard dash, would the pace be the same? Because the finish line is so much closer, we'd run full speed from the minute we took off, wouldn't we? Because of the proximity of how close the finish line is. The people that win in life don't necessarily have more vision than you. See, it's not a lack of vision always that means that you are going to lose. It's a lack of a type of vision, which is depth perception. You think you're further away from the outcome, and so you pace yourself like it, and you jog all the time throughout your life. The people that win may have a bigger vision, but they have accurate depth perception. They understand how close their goals are, how close their outcome is, and they're constantly in a sprint to get there throughout their day. That means consequently, they get started earlier and they finish later. They get up earlier
Throughout the day, they're in a bigger hurry to get to the places they need to be because the finish line in their mind is so much closer. I cannot emphasize this enough to you, is just the pace and the way time shrinks for elite performers compared to the average. I'm telling you, the average performer can say the same things, read the same books, have the same schedule, yet the person who is in a bigger hurry throughout the day ends up winning the day, winning the week, winning the month, winning the year, and winning the life.
Rule number 47, take action.
I know for me, taking action really builds confidence. You know, sometimes you almost have to fake it until you make it. If you just act confident, you start to feel confident. Do you think that that's true?
100%. You can't, I say this all the time, I can't teach you how to steer a parked car, right? You have to be in motion. You have to be moving. And people wonder, have I really made a decision? The real way we know if you've made a decision to make a change is that it's followed up with immediate, massive action, as you said. And that's the thing. I think there's a lot of people invested in personal development to make it more complicated than it really is, as if there's these secrets, you know, whether it's the authors of the books or mentors or whoever it is. In fact, even you might be invested if you can make it yourself believe that winning is complex, because really complexity is the enemy of execution, right? But if you can make yourself think it's complex, then it's really not your fault you haven't won yet, because you're missing something, rather than it probably being what it really is that you're unwilling or avoiding the work you need to do to really go build your company or build your field force or build your body or build your life. And so it's being able to simplify things and really know that there is no key to really winning. The key is the hard work and keeping things as simple as you can.
Rule number 48, study success.
So you are one of the greatest, not just influencers, but and speakers publicly.
Thank you.
That are in the world right now. For those that, you know, are looking to step up and become a brand right now. They have that desire. They want to become speakers. You know, how do you master that craft of being able to get into a flow and really connect with your audience?
Watch the people that are out there. How do they deliver their message? Where do they hold their hands? I'm not saying you should copy people. I'm saying study it. Study I studied, because it was pre-social media, I studied preachers on TV. To this day, I watch stand-up comedians constantly. I'm addicted to it because they're funny, and I watch how they roll out a line. I watch how they deliver a message. I watch, do they walk when they talk? Do they stop when they're making the important point? How do they use their hands? Do they raise their voice? Do they lower their voice? How comfortable are they with silence? So I watch people who can communicate all the time. The separation is always in the preparation. So my confidence always comes from how prepared I am when I speak. I told you earlier, I need to prepare for tomorrow. I know what I'm going to say, but I've got to really prepare. My confidence, the separation for me, comes in the preparation.
Rule number 49, have a strong why.
Left to my own devices, right? If you just left me like what I'd like to do, hey man, I have no problem laying around. I like sleeping. Like people think, they meet people like, you know, they're robots, they're other life forms, they're just different than me. No, we build habits, rituals, and disciplines that serve us, okay? Now, part of those habits, rituals, and disciplines have sort of turned me into a more confident person. There's no question about that. So my standards are mandatory because you get your standards, right? And so the reason my standards are set so high is because I don't want to leave it up to my own devices, right? My standard is one more minute on the treadmill. My standard is one more person I can reach that day, one more phone call, one more something. And so for me, I raise them every single year, but the way I get to do it is I link it to my reasons. And so goals are really empty to me. I have a thing on goal setting, but like my big thing is that you show me someone with compelling, emotional, gigantic reasons, I'll show you someone who's changing their standards all day long. So like, give you one quick version that you've not heard before. One of the reasons I'm relatively fit is not just peak state. I have an uncle in my family that died at 50 years old of a heart attack. He's my godfather, my dad's only brother. I kind of resembled him. And I look like him a lot. So on the way back from his funeral, my reticular activator's on heart attacks. On the TV screen on the airplane, I'm listening to music, is the Oprah Winfrey show. She's going through a new heart scan. I've unplugged my headphones, plug it into the airplane one. They're talking about this new scan at Cedars-Sinai that at that time was new. It could read the plaques in your arteries, the calcifications, without going, you know, really invasively. I scheduled it. I went in. I had a world-class doctor who understood reasons and leverage instead of just prescribing. Because when we coach people, you need to do this, you need to do this. Doctors do it. Take this pill, take this. Right. He understood leverage and reasons. What you do is you take the scan, then you go to lunch, you come back. I took the scan, I went to lunch, I had a burrito. I came back and I'm in the, when I walk in, I sit down, the doctor comes out and he says, oh my, I can't believe these arteries are in that young body. Got my attention. We walk back in, we sit down. He could still go, you need Crestor, eat clean, get out of here. Isn't that what an average doctor does, right? No, wired me with huge reasons. He goes, let me ask you a question. I heard your wife's pregnant. I said, yeah, I have a son. And he says, do you want to be there when he graduates from high school to be there for that day? I said, yes, sir, yeah. He goes, your wife's pregnant. What do you have? And I said, a daughter. This is where you get a dad. He goes, she was 6 months pregnant. He goes, would you like to walk her down the aisle on her wedding day, or are you okay that it's some other man? I went, what the f is on this scan, right? And he goes, I want to be very clear with you. If you keep going down the road you're going, there'll be some other man with your son at graduation high school, and a stranger's walking your daughter down the aisle that's not even born yet on her wedding day. And I went, boom. And he goes, but if you do exactly what I tell you to do, you'll be there. And so to this day, brother, there are mornings when I wake up, not every morning, I don't want to go to the gym. I go, Bella's wedding, Bella's wedding, Bella's wedding. So my standards are high because of my big old reasons. Other dudes may miss the gym that day because they're not going to miss their daughter's wedding if they don't go. But I've convinced myself I will. I get emotional. I've convinced myself I'll miss my daughter's wedding. So I will get my ass out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning and I will get to that gym because my reasons are bigger, so my standards are higher. So that's what I think causes us to have great standards, is huge reasons.
And rule number 50, the last one before a very special bonus rule: live and believe what you do.
I can't transfer to you something that I'm not experiencing myself. So a lot of times people say, well, I want to transfer to people leadership, or I want to influence them to buy my product, or I want to grow my company. You have to really believe these things. They have to really be consistent with your values, because you can't give me something you don't have. And so really successful people, really influential people, powerful people are congruent. They actually live and believe the things they say and do.
Now I've got a special bonus clip from Ed on how to always aim for something more that I really think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the 3-point landing questions. Let's go from just watching a video to taking action in your life or business. Here we go. Question number 1. Where do you need to use your time better? Number 2, which 3 people will you commit to studying success from? And number 3, what does a maxed out life look like for you?
One of my top guys at our firm a few weeks ago, one of my favorite people, probably one of the most talented guys in my company, I won't say who he is because he might be watching this, but he said that to me. He goes, I just wanted to share with the world how amazing and incredible my life is, and blah, 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 blah. And I told him, I said, when I was at your level, I couldn't stomach it. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't live on that kind of income. I didn't want to live my life like that. And I said, it scares me that you think somehow this is the dream. And then, of course, he kind of corrected himself and backstopped. But the fact is, I'm constantly deceiving myself that I really do feel that way. Like I really don't feel successful. I don't think I'm a failure. But I do measure it up against the highest version of me, my highest expression.
As opposed to what? As opposed to measuring yourself against
other people. That's the biggest thing people do. They're so obsessed with other people that it kills them. They think about, what are they thinking about me? What are they going to think about me? What are they saying? And then they measure themselves against other people too. And I don't think, I've been around you. You're a powerhouse, but neither one of us are, I think you were talking about Einstein at the break. Neither one of us have a super crazy off the charts IQ. Right? I sure know you don't. So I'm going to talk to you for enough. I know for sure you don't.
He's done that a couple of times now. He keeps taking shots at me.
It's obvious. They're watching. They know. They've seen you. They know you. No, but the fact of the matter is, you didn't get where you are. No, but you didn't get where you are because of some gifted, gigantic intellect. I can't wait to meet
your wife, though, man.
No, but it's a fact. Both of us didn't get there because of some unbelievable natural giftedness we have that just produced success, right? So I don't measure myself against other people because they've got gifts that are different than mine.
If you want to learn how to get rich like Ed Mylett, go check out the video right next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
I made multiple 6 figures one year, and we lived in a $700 a month apartment. Yes, biggest money mistake I made in my life is investing in things that I don't understand.